You are listening to the Prosperous Law Podcast. Learn how to reduce stress, have more time, and make more money. Come on in.
I'm Greg McCollum, and I built a 7-figure criminal defense law firm. I formed Prosperous Law to show criminal defense law firm owners who are desperate for success how to grow from under $200,000 to $1 million and beyond. Hi, Greg McCollum here with another edition of the Prosperous Law Podcast. Thanks for joining me. As you know, Prosperous Law coaches criminal defense lawyers so that you can learn, grow, and become. Now, there's also, beyond learning and growing and becoming, there's this another step in there, and it's called implement. So it doesn't matter how much you learn. In order to grow, you have to do something. And it seems silly to even say that. But sometimes, and I've found with myself, and I've done a lot of coaching personally. I've done a lot of business coaching in all kinds of different companies that weren't necessarily law firm coaching, and they certainly weren't criminal defense focused coaching. So I've done a lot of that. And one of the things that I think happened to me, and one of the things that I see happening to people, is that they're getting the information. So they're learning a lot, and sometimes it can give the illusion of growth because you're around people who are growing. It's exciting. You find out what's possible, and so it's almost like a high or something to go to an event, especially live events, live in-person events, which are my favorite. I don't do a lot of virtual events. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I read a lot of books. I listen to books, and I do some of it. But for me, the live in-person event, for me personally, there's really no substitute for that. Probably the only live event that I did virtually, which in some ways was probably transformative, is I did a Tony Robbins live event, and it was virtual, and I think it was 5 days, and I'd never seen Tony Robbins before, and so. But he told us to get somewhere where you're by yourself, and I had the house to myself during that time of day for those 5 days. And so in his training, he spends a lot of time on your state of mind. And so I was jumping around in my kitchen looking at my laptop, or as in the other room, I'd carry my laptop around with me. And so I got a lot out of that. But that's probably really, unless I'm missing something, the only one. So learning, growing, and becoming, but you have to implement. You have to do something. So today's topic is criminal defense is different. Criminal defense law practicing is just different than, say, personal injury. And it may seem like an obvious statement, but one of the things that you see is that most lawyers are drawn to personal injury. And the reason is because there's so much money there. It's just the way that practice is set up, because people get injured, accidents happen. I live in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and there are accidents here, multiple accidents here, every day of the week. And some are severe, some are fender benders. So in those situations, in order to deal with the insurance company, obviously you know this, that's out there. And so people want to get that because they want to get that big case. And one of the things that I'll talk about here a little bit is how average case values are different with personal injury lawyers versus criminal lawyers. And I don't care I don't care who you are as a criminal defense lawyer, you're not going to go around charging somebody, $5 or $10 million to represent them. And if you do, it's because you're going to have a lot of lawyers working in a complex case. I don't know of a situation where one lawyer, and it may exist, and if it does, somebody please tell me, where one lawyer says, okay, I'm going to charge you, $5 million, and that lawyer doesn't have a team of other lawyers and specialists and forensic people and all of that. So even though it's a big budget, you're not getting it all. Now, from my own personal experience, I think, and I don't know if I talked about this before, but I had a case that went over, I think it was 5 or 6 years. It started with a federal grand jury subpoena in one state, and then we dealt with that. But the clients, and there was more than one client because there was a company and there were partners in the company, and then there were other people that worked for the company that got indicted ultimately. I think the legal fees for that, and it's still not $10 million, but I think the legal fees that they paid out in that case were, I can't remember exactly, I think it was a little more than $2.5 million. It might have been between $2.5 million and $3 million. One of my roles was to bring in the best lawyers, some of the best federal criminal defense lawyers for that type of case, some of the best ones in the country, or certainly in the Southeast, because the case was it started, I think, in Alabama, in Mobile or somewhere like that, and then it went to they were based in Louisiana, and then the case ended up being indicted and handled in southern Georgia, like I think it was Brunswick, Georgia. So the point of that is that nobody handed me a check for $2.5 million and said, okay, you defend us. I wasn't capable of defending them because I think we had 6 or 8 different clients, 6 or 8 different people. So obviously under just common sense conflict rules and the practical part of it, even if there were no conflict rules, it wouldn't work. I could not represent every one of those people. So I think in that case, and I can't remember exactly the fee that I got, even though say the fee is $2.5 million, I think I was paid $250,000, certainly less than $300,000 over the whole course of it. So if you break that down, say it's 5 years, $250,000, it was essentially a $50,000 fee to my firm over the course of 5 years. So in personal injury, if someone settles a case, let's say just $750,000, and if the fee is 1/3, so that one case, $750,000, which is not far-fetched at all, that one law firm gets a fee of $250, and it may take a couple of years for that case to work out, and then there are cases where lawyers settle cases all the time. I mean, somebody settles a case for $3 million, the legal fee's $1 million. That's not going to happen in a criminal defense practice. I don't believe that's ever going to happen. If I'm wrong, but I'm convinced I'm not wrong. That's just the reality. So most lawyers that I know, certainly in Myrtle Beach, they all do personal injury, and that's why, because they can get that big windfall. I remember I had referred a case to a friend of mine who's extremely brilliant lawyer in all respects, and he called me or texted me after he had done the case, and it had been a year or two. And I'll never forget, he texted me and said, "Are you home?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "I'm pulling up in your driveway." So he pulls up in my driveway in his white Hummer, and he's got this huge smile on his face, and he hands me a check made out to my law firm for $32,000, which I wasn't expecting at all. I knew he said he was going to share a percentage of the fee with me. And he goes, "Here." So that was great. It was unexpected. it was $32,000. Okay, that's fantastic. So that's why obviously lawyers, pursue the personal injury cases, and everybody wants to be in the personal injury business. The thing though that jumps out at me, and I'll talk a little bit about average case values, is that if I have a law firm that brings in, say, $1.5 million a year, okay, that's very doable. It may take a little time to get there, but to consistently have a law firm it doesn't have to be that big. Right now we have 2 lawyers, not counting myself because I'm not doing any lawyering. I'm, the CEO of the company or the managing partner of the company to do all the stuff that the lawyers don't want to do and are not good at. But that's only 2 lawyers. So at $1.5 million in annual gross revenues, that would be the same as if I settled a $4.5 million case every year. So if you look at it like that, it's as if I get a $4.5 million case, and then the fees a third of that at $1.5 million. So that's the math. That's how that works. Now, the case numbers, the clients that you have to bring into your firm, those numbers are much higher. My average case value right now is ballpark about $6,500. So if you add up the number of files that we open, number of clients we bring in, add up the fees that we're collecting on that, and just divide that, then that gives you an average case value. So, and that's a general average case value. We break it down a little bit more than that because, for example, our average case value for felony cases is right about $10,000. Our average case value for DUI, which we charge $5,000 for, I think last time I looked at it, I think it was $4,700 or something like that. And then our lowest case value is just the basic, somebody got arrested for something not serious at all, a 30-day offense type of thing. And so our average case value on our case value, our fee for that, our baseline, I think is $3,000. So if you pour all that in, divide it all out, that's $6,500. Now, when I was talking to a personal injury coach who owns a personal injury coaching company, he's very successful, he's a good friend of mine, he talked to me about the average case value for personal injury. And he said, the basement, the worst personal injury practice you're ever going to see is an average case value of $7,500. So you almost work down to that. You almost have to do a bad job to have an average case value of $7,500. He said most of the firms are really more like $15,000. And then $20,000 to $25,000 is also probably closer to the norm in terms of what goes into that. So if the average case value is just $15,000 for the okay personal injury law firm, it's already double. So it's already double the money, and so it's fewer cases. If you do some math here, you look at say $1 million. Say you want a firm that brings in $1 million. You have a criminal defense only law firm like mine, or you're segmenting that part of your practice. Say you have 2 or 3 practice areas, but you're treating that as a separate entity within your entity. So at a $6,500 average case value, you got to have 154 cases. So you got to open 154 files. For personal injury, I'll split it between 25,000 and 15,000, just call it 20. So for average case value in personal injury of $20,000 per case, that's 50 cases. So it's a third. You have to have 150. Complete legal defense team has to have 154 files. Personal injury has to have 50. The other thing with the personal injury lawyers is that, at least the ones I know, they don't ever go anywhere. They don't ever leave the office. They don't have to do anything. Whereas with us, we have 154 cases pending, open files. That's literally 154 court dates. It's 154 appearances, and there's more than one appearance on a case. So my lawyers, they're in court all the time. I could pull out the calendar right now. They're in court now, and they're in different courts, and they may be going to another court when they leave that court. So the personal injury lawyers that I know, because it always amazed me when I call my friends who are successful personal injury lawyers, and I call them, they answer the phone. And I'm like, I can't believe you answer the phone. Well, the reason they answer the phone is because they're in their office all day, because it's office work. It's settling cases, it's prepping cases, it's talking to clients, it's talking to adjusters. They work in their office. My lawyers are out driving their car, talking on their iPhone, calling in the office, trying to get to the jail, trying to get to court, get to bond hearings. They're out there on the road, and it's just different. So that's harder to make money when you're driving and you're going somewhere. And most the court appearances we do are honestly just a complete waste of time, but they have to be done. Client has to be there. Client has to be reassured. You have to make the appearance. You have to wait to make the appearance. It's not uncommon in criminal court to sit around and wait for an hour or more, 3 hours. And so this is just a different way of looking at it. It's a different reality, and it's important to understand that. And it helped me a lot when I started having these numbers and seeing that and seeing where that goes. Now, I also was looking at just the spend, because until a few years ago, 5 or 6, 7 years ago, I really didn't have a marketing plan, and I really didn't do anything to market myself other than some networking and that sort of thing. So I think 6 years ago or something like that, we started doing some television advertising, but I didn't really want to do the television advertising. So what I did is I did a little show. It's called Inside the Courtroom, and it was at the TV station, and I would have somebody ask me a legal question, and then I would give the answer, and maybe there's a follow-up. And that was a 2-minute show. So it's an infomercial, but it appears on the TV station during the news. Okay, so it breaks in, and originally it was a news set. It had the TV station logo, and it kind of evolved where it's now my logo behind us. And so if you've ever seen it, it's like this. Our big logo, Complete Legal Defense Team, is there, but it's on television. So it's different, and I think that was a good shift, because originally I wanted it to look like that I was, being interviewed on the news, and one of the reporters from the TV station, she was the show host, so it looked more like a show. Now it is a show, but it's just branded, excuse me, to my law firm, which I like a lot better. Now, one of the things, just kind of aside for that's useful though, is because it was 2 minutes, it was cumbersome to use it in social media because of the time limits, the video links in social media. Even now, which so many of them have opened up, is 60 seconds is kind of a standard. 60 seconds or less is what you need. Now, we've changed it, so we've shortened it down to a minute. And even though it's not as much a show, it's just like a blurb or something like that, realistically, no one wants to watch it for 2 minutes anyway. Probably most people click on it and watch it. If you look at the average views, very few people watch it to the end. What I'm saying is just not that interesting or not that appropriate to their place in life and what they're going through. It's information and it's helpful, and people have actually that I've met have told me that they watch it and it is helpful. And so that was my approach. And I did that because I really was squeamish about advertising on television. Since then, I think I've gotten over that, and we're doing more spots and that sort of thing. But in terms of the spend for the TV station, I'm on one station. Some of these law firms are on 4 stations here. For the first quarter, it looks like I spent just under $12,000. So I'm spending a little under $4,000 a month. The big law firms here, the one is a national law firm that moved into South Carolina. The other one is a South Carolina, Georgia, North Carolina, perhaps law firm. Those guys who are in competition with each other, trying to grab market share in that first quarter between 4 TV stations, so January, February, March of 2024, they each spent at least $400,000. So they spend $400,000 on television in 3 months. And that doesn't, and their billboards are everywhere here. There are a lot of billboards in the Myrtle Beach area and in the county and different places. So that's just the TV spend, $400,000. And that's because their average case values are high, and they're getting catastrophic cases. They're getting cases where more than one person's injured in a family. They're getting wrongful death cases. They're getting the most tragic type cases, let's say victims of a felony DUI sort of thing. And so the only thing that's really limiting them is whatever the policy limits on the insurance is. And in South Carolina, minimum limits is $25,000, but I won't go into that right now. So the people that I know, like friends of mine that I think are very successful personal injury lawyers and have great reputations and do a good job for people and really take care of people, in that first quarter, they're spending between like $60,000 and $90,000. So they're laying it out there, and that's their TV spend too, across multiple TV stations. But they also have billboards, so they're pouring this money into this. Which, as a criminal defense lawyer, if I spend $90,000 in 3 months, that really has to be spread out over different geographic areas, because the average case value and also just the number of people getting arrested, and then the people that get arrested, for our clients, we defend the accused who have a lot to lose, and so you have to have the right person. In a car wreck, it doesn't matter. If you're a human being, it doesn't matter how much money you make, it doesn't matter what kind of job you have, it doesn't matter if you're a child, nothing matters. If you're injured in that wreck or that accident, you're covered, so you're a potential client. In criminal defense, the client base is so much more limited, and plenty of people get arrested in this jurisdiction, but 80% of them, 65 to over 80% of them, are going to be classified as indigent and go to the public defender. So then that's carved down, and so there's just this pool of people that are qualified to hire you. And that's a different topic too, but focus on that. But average case values are extremely important. The other thing I'll talk about just briefly is, and I can't remember who wrote it, but there's a book called, I think it's called Blue Ocean. If that's not the name of the book, it's certainly what they talk about. And in the book, the author talks about fishing, and if you go where all there are fish there, but that's a known fishing spot, so all the fishermen are there fishing. So they call that the red ocean, because everybody is in there competing in that red ocean for the same fish. And I liken the personal injury area of practice to red ocean. Personal injury lawyers are far more advanced in terms of business models and knowing what they're doing and marketing and those things. They're so much more advanced than other areas of law practice. But they're in that red ocean. And so one of the things that I've done, even though everybody I know has always said, well, you should do personal injury cases, there's too much money in it. I resisted that. We refer cases. We've, like my example, we've gotten some fees. But for criminal defense, you can think about this. The blue ocean is where there are fish there too, but nobody's fishing except you. So you put your boat in the blue ocean versus the red ocean, where all the competition is. So you move out of the personal injury space over to the blue ocean, understand average case value, understand your ideal client, understand the level of marketing that you can work up to that will consistently bring in those clients. And so for criminal defense, there's a friend of mine who has a law firm. He's very successful, but he's kind of like your one-stop law firm where we do it all. His billboards say, criminal defense, personal injury, family, civil. And he built that model. And so he does some marketing for criminal defense. But honestly, almost no one else in my market does. And certainly no one's marketing on television like I am for criminal defense. So in that regard, I don't have to spend $400,000 to bring in potential clients. I'm spending less than 12. And that number's going up now as we're going into some other geographical markets, and then also as we're increasing our capacity and in a growth phase, bringing in more here in our territory. So it's something to think about. If you're doing marketing, then do you want to fish in a blue ocean, or do you want to compete in the red ocean? And if you want to be in the red ocean, and that you want to be a personal injury lawyer because you want the possibility, of getting and settling a $50 million case, that's transformative. And so literally everyone would also, I think everybody would like that and want that. But there's another way that you can do it for criminal defense, and that is understanding that you're going to have more numbers. You're going to have more clients to handle. But if you build your law firm up, think of it in terms of how many personal injury cases you would have to settle, or how big the settlement would have to be. And if you get a $3 million case and you settle it for a third and you get $1 million, if that's a one-off, that it happens once or it happens every 3 years or every 6 years or something like that, then you're going to be making less money, doing less consistent work than a criminal defense law firm that's bringing in that every year or every over the course of your firm's life. There's another way that you can do that, and you can bring in that money. It's just more clients, more cases, more people doing the work, but it also adds up. Just like McDonald's and Walmart, there's very low price points there, but they've grown big because they figured out how to do that. So I hope this is helpful. Thank you for joining me. Greg McCollum here. I'll see you next time. If you want to know more, go to prosperitlaw.com. We show criminal defense law firm owners how to reduce stress, have more free time, and make more money. Thanks for listening.